Good morning, students. Let's start our today's lecture. Your few students have joined of your class from college. They are involved in one of the practical activity. The media lab is going on, and the sir is taking their workshop on different things, probably camera handling and how there are different things like how can you reduce the noise, how can you raise the volume up, how can you write the script. So there are many of things. So he's taking the media lab of students. Let's start our lecture. The right, which was left yesterday, that was the last right, right to privacy. Okay. The right to privacy is the latest right of the country being recently approved by the Supreme Court of India. According to this right, we are liable to keep our material private, and without our permission, no one can interfere in our private matter. It applies to all our private material also. Right to property was removed from the Indian Constitution in 1978. It is no longer counted as a fundamental right. So the last right which they are talking about, that is called as the right to privacy. So in this right, what they are trying to tell that nobody can interfere into your personal lives. So that is why you must have heard of a lot of times people saying this thing that they have right of privacy. So you cannot discuss their personal matters, or you cannot talk about publicly, because it is the violation of the right to privacy, which is been supported by Supreme Court of India. So one of the right which was earlier part of our fundamental right, that was right to property, which was removed in 1978, and this new right, right to privacy, it has included into in as the fundamental right. So that is the last kind of fundamental right. Now, along with fundamental rights, we have two more things. One is uh, directive principles and fundamental duties. So first of all, we will discuss directive principles in India. Directive principles of state policy, embodied in Part 4th of the Constitution, are directions given to the state to guide the establishment of an economic and social democracy as processed by the preamble. So they are saying like directive principles are somehow the directions or the guidelines to the states that how can they run their state. So it gives somehow the what do you call, the direction to them that this is how the state should run. The democratic state or the economic and social democracy can be maintained with the help of it, which is given mentioned in our preamble of the Constitution. They set forth the humanitarian and socialist instructions that were the aim of social revolution envisaged in India by the Constituent Assembly. So they are trying to say that what is the reason behind it. Uh, the socialist means everything is for the benefit of public welfare. So they have said that that approach should be kept in mind while doing any of the work, or this was somehow the thought of the Constituent Assembly when they make the Constitution. The state is expected to keep these principles in mind while framing laws and policies, even though they are non-justiciable in nature. So they say that we're supposed to keep these principles in our mind. Our means state should keep these principles in their mind while framing the laws or the policies for the people. And one thing is also that one should keep in mind that you cannot challenge these things in a court. So these are not fundamental rights. These are directive principles. The directive principles may be classified under the following categories: ideas that our state ought to strive towards achieving, directions for the exercise of legislative and executive power, rights of the citizens which the state must aim towards securing. So these three things they have divided. They have said that like there should be ideas that state ought to strive towards achieving. There should be ideas, direction to exercise the legislative and executive and rights of the citizens. The state should always keep in their mind to secure them. Despite being non-justiciable, the directive principles act as a check on the state, theorized as a yardstick in the hands of the electorate and the opposition to measure the performance of a government at the time of an election. They're saying, though we know this thing, we cannot challenge directive principles in court because these are not fundamental. These are just the directions, but it's a kind of a stick in the hands of the electorate, means the bodies which actually conduct the elections, and the opposition, the party which sits in the parliament, and they check the performance of the government, that they follow all the rules and regulations which are mentioned in directive principles of state policies. If they do not, then there will be check on them so that these things can be asked. So they always worry about these things. The government always worry about these things, that they would not do anything which is somehow the direct you can say that the opposition of directive principles. The state is expected to keep these principles in mind while framing laws and policies. They're saying it, Article 37, while stating that directive principles are not enforceable in any court of law, declares them to be fundamental to the governance of the country and imposes an obligation on state to apply them in the matters of legislation. Thus, they serve to emphasize the welfare state model of the Constitution and emphasize the positive duty of the state to promote the welfare of the people by affirming social, economic, and political justice, as well to the fight income inequality and ensures individual dignity as mandated. So these are things they're saying. Of course, we know this thing that we cannot challenge these things into the court, but these are the directions to the government that they should take. They should assume it as a fundamental, and they should obligate it that the state should always work for the welfare of the people. They should emphasize on the duties that which promotes the welfare of public and make sure that every social, economic, and political justice is given to the people. And of course, to fight against the income inequality in the state, so that individual dignity is mandated, is maintained. So nobody will feel like that deprived, that we are facing any kind of inequalities. Article 39 lays down certain principles of policy to be followed by state, including providing an adequate means of livelihood for all citizens. So this is again the you can say that certain guidelines which are given to the state. One is they are saying that state should make sure that they are providing all the fair means to the citizens for their livelihood, equal pay for equal work for men and women. So there should not be any discrimination on the basis of caste, sex, gender, color, proper working conditions, reduction of the concentration of wealth and means of production from the hands of a few, that is socialist. So they think that the money should not come up in hands of a few people, it should be equally distributed. The distribution of community resources to subserve the common good. These clauses highlight the constitutional objectives of building an egalitarian social order and establishing a welfare state by bringing about a social revolution assisted by state, and have been used to support the nationalization of mineral resources as well as public utilities. So crux of this is they are trying to tell that government should always keep these things into mind. There should be equal pay. There should not be any discrimination on the basis of working condition, on any other basis. Wealth should not be in hands of few people. And then they're saying welfare of all should be taken care of, and always the socialist thing it should be to the mind of. It means that nationals with national spirit, everybody will get the equal distribution of these facilities. Further, several legislation pertaining to agrarian reform and land tenure have been enacted by the federal and state governments in order to ensure equitable distribution of land resources. There was a time when one person was having, thousands of acres of land. So now there are a lot of land reforms that has been done by government to remove this social inequality. And now, on name of one person, there is a limitation. So there is a limitation. I cannot say that what is the limit, but there is a limitation they have now made that one person cannot have the unlimited acre of lands on his name. Article 41 to 43 mandate the state to endeavor to secure all citizens the right to work, a living wage, social security, maternity relief, and a decent standard of living. So these are the parameters they are saying. Article 41 and 43 is mandating to the state to secure all the citizens over these things. These provisions aim at establishing a socialist state as envisaged in the preamble. So it is what it has been supported into the preamble that these things, these provisions should always keep into the mind of the government. Article 43 also places upon the state the responsibility of promoting cottage industries, and the federal government has, in a furtherance of this, established several boards for the permission of khadi, handlooms, etc., in coordination with the state governments. So they are trying to also promote the homemade things so that inequality should be reduced. Article 39A requires the state to provide the free legal aid to ensure that opportunities for the securing justice are available to all citizens irrespective of economic or other disabilities. So there is another very important point, that is that government should always work upon free legal aid. Free legal aid means if somebody has no money to hire the lawyer, he can request to the court that government should give him a lawyer who would defend him in the court so that inequality could be removed. Article 43A mandates the state to work towards securing the participation of workers in the management of industries. The state under Article 46 is also mandated to promote the interest of and work for the economic uplift of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and protect them from discrimination and exploitation. Several enactments, including two constitutional amendments, have been passed to give effect to this provision. There is another direction to the states that the work should not be stopped. It should be continuously going on deprived people, deprived societies, especially scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, because these are the people those who faces actually inequality. So for them, there are certain provisions which has been made into the constitutional amendments. Article 44 encourages the state to secure a uniform civil code for all citizens by eliminating discrepancies between various personal laws currently in force in the country. So there is another provision for the state. They are saying which encourages state to secure a uniform civil code. So which is common to all for all the citizens. Eliminating discrepancies means nobody is above the law. Everybody is common. Everybody is equal in front of the law. However, this has reminded a dead letter. Despite numerous reminders from the Supreme Court to implement the provision, Article 45 originally mandated the state to provide free and compulsory education to children. So they're saying there are a lot of times, when we feel this thing that this has not done or not, but actually these are being given as a directive principle to the state that they should follow it, and especially it is compulsory for the education to the children. So it's not like that, these directive state policies also, state this thing that the education should not be stopped for the, or, the primary education, I would say, that should not be stopped for the children between the ages of 6 and 14 years. But after the 86th Amendment in 2002, this has been converted into a fundamental right and replaced by an obligation upon state to secure childhood care to all children below the age of 6. As I told that, primary education is somehow is very important for the state an obligation to the state that they should always take care of it. But it's a now fundamental right as well. As so government is somehow providing opportunities up to 14 years, so almost up to 10th I can say that. The fees are almost negligible in government schools, because they are providing right to education, and for the SC and ST it is even free, I can say this thing. Article 47 commits the state to raise the standard of living and improve public health, and prohibit the consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs injurious to health. As a consequence, partial or total prohibition has been introduced in several states, but financial constraints have prevented its full-fledged application. So they are saying that is another direction from the directive principles to the states, that they should follow these things. Mean there should be a prohibition of consumption of intoxicant drinks or drugs which are injurious to the health. But they are saying due to financial constraints, some of the states they are obligating, they are accepting it, some not. Like in Punjab, we can see this thing, the condition, but in Gujarat, situation is different. There are other states which are also called as a dry states, where this has been. The governments of these states have been, following these things. State is also mandated by Article 48 to organize agriculture and animal husbandry on modern and scientific lines by improving breeds and prohibiting slaughter of cattle. So that is another, they are saying it, that they should improve these things. How can we increase the milk production or the agriculture organic production from the organic agriculture, and there is a prohibition of slaughter of the cattle. Article 48A mandate the state to protect the environment and safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. That is again the obligation or the direction to them. They should protect the environment and the wildlife. Article 49 places an obligation upon the state to ensure the preservation of monuments and objects of national importance. So they should also take care of this thing. Article 50 requires the state to ensure the separation of judiciary from executive in public services. So they should not be combined. In order to ensure judicial independence, and federal legislation has been acted to achieve this objective, the state, according to Article 51, must also strive for the promotion of international peace and security, and Parliament has been empowered under Article 253 to make laws giving effect to international treaties. So this is what it has been said, that they are saying there are a lot of articles which actually gives direction to the states on different matters. So judicial independence they talk about like in promotion of the international peace and security. So they also have talked about preservation of monuments and objects of national importance, like if there are some buildings which are of national importance, so that should also the duty of the state to preserve it. Okay. Or the monuments, for example Taj Mahal, or there are a lot many other buildings, uh, like which are the inns, we can say that, which are called as sarais, we can those are been inbuilt on the national highways. So it is the duty of the state, if they recognize, if they find out that there is a monument or a building which is of national importance, the preservation of that building is the duty of state. So they should take care of this thing. Along with, they also need to take care of the environment. They need to see that how the forest can improve the life of the wildlife can be improved, because we all know this thing that if we'll not have the forest, we know we'll not have the greenery, the condition of our environment will go worsen. So this is also the duty of the state. So it has also the duty of state to take care of the international treaties, because internationally one country has made a lot of treaties with the other countries to do certain works in their countries. So state, if something this kind of a work, it comes under the jurisdiction of one state, then again it is the mandatory duty of, mandatory means this is not like obligation, but it is a directive to them that they should take care of it, because we should respect if a country has made any of the treaty with any other country. So these are called as the directive state policies. So the next topic of yours is called as Fundamental duties. So we talked about there are three things: fundamental rights, directive state policies, and fundamental duties. The fundamental duties of citizens were added to the Constitution by 42nd Amendment in 1976 upon the recommendation of Swarn Singh Committee that was constituted by the government earlier that year. Originally 10 in number, the fundamental duties were increased to 11 by the 86th Amendment in 2002, which added a duty on every parent or guardian to ensure that their child or ward was provided opportunities for education between the ages of 6 and 14 years. The other fundamental duties obligate all citizens to respect the national symbol of India. So, this is what they are talking about. What are the fundamental duties? Fundamental rights which are subject to a court you can take if any of your right has been challenged or violated. Along with it, constitution is also giving you duties that if you are exercising rights, they are saying we should also follow duties. So these are called as fundamental duties. A committee was constituted. The name of committee was Swarn Singh Committee, and they have made 10 fundamental duties. But in 2002, there was another one additional duty was added into it. That is that to provide the education or to every children. The parents should feel this thing that they should not deprive getting their child deprived from the primary or the basic schooling we consider. So they are saying from 6 means in government schools usually they take children from 6 of age, and 14 years they expect the kid would complete up his 10th class. So that is what usually they take up. Like every children should at least complete his basic education up to 10th, so he will be able to understand the basic. Uh, so this is what this fundamental duty it has been added. So other fundamental duties are the first one they are saying all citizens to respect the national symbols of India, okay, including the constitution, to cherish its heritage, to preserve its composite culture, and assist in its defense. So this is the duty of everybody to respect the symbols we have chosen for our country and try to preserve our heritage, try to save our culture, and this is our duty. They also obligate all Indians to promote the spirit of common brotherhood, protect the environment and public property. So common brotherhood concept should be increased. Like everybody should feel like Indians, not like I am from Punjab, I am from Haryana, I am from Bihar. So Indians should be the one voice everybody should feel like. Then they are saying it. Protect the environment and public property. That is our duty. Again, the fundamental duty: do not damage or disrespect the public properties. If you go over there, you start writing your name, and you feel like somehow proud that I have written my name over there, you are damaging public property. So develop scientific temper, abjure violence. You need to be away from the violence, any kind of violence, and strive towards excellence in all spheres of life. In case of violation of fundamental duties and enshrined in the Constitution by a citizen, including President, Vice President, Speaker, Parliament member, State Legislative members, etc., it amounts to contempt of the Constitution, which is punishable under Prevention of Insult to National Honors Act 1971. They're saying if it is something serious, that can also be taken to court. Because when you can go to court for the fundamental rights, so then you can also be taken to the court if you will somehow, uh, you know, do not follow the fundamental duties and you disrespect to the fundamental duties. Supreme Court has ruled that these fundamental duties can also help the court to decide the constitutionality of a law passed by the legislator. So they also see that what is constitutionality means. They try to see by the constitution wise the law which are passed by, like how the court is taking. There is a reference to such duties in international instruments such as Universal Declaration of Human Rights and International Covenant on Civil Rights and Political Rights in Article 51A brings the Indian Constitution into conformity with these treaties. The fundamental duties noted in the Constitution are as follows. It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem, cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. So if there are national idols, noble idols, where these are somehow connected with the what do you call that these are related to the national struggle of our freedom. We all know this thing that we have got our freedom uh, very hardly. Lots of lives have lost in the way. I was just taking the lecture of third semester and I was discussing the role of Dr. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi. So try to see that, the independence you are cherishing these days, that was not yours. We were prohibited to go to, restaurants, public places, even on trains. Indians and dogs were not allowed in those places. That was the condition. So they are saying respect for it. If something is related to the national struggle for freedom, we should give respect. This is our fundamental duty to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. So always keep this in your mind. You have to protect the sovereignty, unity, integrity of India. You should not encourage the, what do you call, the division among different races, castes, country, states. Always talk about integrity and unity. Defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Always ready. That is a fundamental duty. If state is calling for any of the national service, you should always be ready for to do so. To promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, regional, sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. So always work upon on these things. Especially they are talking about the dignity of the woman. That is the duty and responsibility of everybody. That is a fundamental duty that if you see somewhere that something is happening, you should always come forward to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. We should always preserve our culture, should not damage it. You go to other countries, you still go to Italy, go over there, you see different monuments of there, you see Colosseum, you see Leaning Pisa, so you go to Paris, you see Eiffel Tower, so everybody is getting happy. But when you come to India, we also have more monuments than them because our history and culture is more rich, more older. But what we are happening, we are damaging. They're saying preserve them. Don't do that. To protect and improve the national environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. We do have, we are living in a Punjab. Punjab means state of five rivers. But see the condition of rivers. And when you go to Canada, see the condition of rivers over there. Clean, green, and blue water. And what we have, we are dumping our industrial water. So that is again the fundamental duty to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry and reform. Develop that, some kind of development. It should be done into your country. So that is how you will be improved by having a humanism and spirit of inquiry and reform. So always have a curiosity to getting improved something to safeguard public property and to abjure violence. Always stay away from these things. Strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. To strive towards excellence in all the spheres. Always work for this thing that the nation would be, shined for because you have done something, you have achieved something, not for the sake of that, your country is famous or some bad things like your terrorism or something like that. Who is a parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education to his child, or as the case may be, what between the age of 6 to 14 years. We just have discussed criticism and analysis. What is the criticism and analysis of these things about the directive principles? They are saying fewer children are now employed in hazardous environments, but their employment in non-hazardous jobs, prevalently as domestic help, violates the spirit of the Constitution in the eyes of many critics and human rights advocates. They are saying we talk about that Constitution is somehow supporting that. Like yesterday, we were discussing that they should not work on, these dangerous places, hazardous places. But there are domestic help which is taken by the kids, and some critics believe that this is again the violation of human rights. More than 16.5 million children are in employment. India was ranked 88 out of 159 countries in 2005, according to the degree to which corruption is perceived to exist among public officials and politicians. Means they know this thing, but they are not doing anything. So this is criticism. 1991 was declared the year of social justice in the memory of Dr. B. R. Ambedkar. Government provides free textbook to students belonging to SC and STs pursuing medicines and engineering courses. During 2002 to 2003, a sum of rupees 4.77 crore was released for this purpose. In order to protect scheduled castes and tribes from discrimination, the government enacted the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Act in 1989, prescribing severe punishment for such actions. So the Minimum Wages Act of 1948 empowered government to fix minimum wages for people working across the economic spectrum. The Consumer Protection Act of 1986 provides for the better protection of consumers. The Equal Remuneration Act of 1976 provides the equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Sampoorna Gramin Yojana was launched in 2001 to obtain the objective of providing gainful employment for the rural poor. The program was implemented through the Panchayati Raj institutions. A system of elected village councils known as Panchayati Raj covers almost all states and territories of India. One third the total number of seats have been reserved for women in panchayats at every level, and in case of Bihar, half the seats have been reserved for women. So they are trying to tell that these provisions or these things that has been done. One is criticism, another one is somehow analysis. They are also trying to see that a lot of work that has been done to ensure these things. The judiciary has been separated from executive in all states and territories except Jammu and Kashmir and Nagaland. India's foreign policy has been influenced by the directive principles. India supported United Nations in peacekeeping. This is analysis going on. Peacekeeping activities with the Indian Army having participated in 37 UN peacekeeping operations. So Indian Army also supported United Nations, which works for the whole world. United Nations take means the whole world is a one country. The implementation of uniform civil code for all citizens has not been achieved owing to widespread opposition from various religious groups and political parties. Although there is a criticism that uniform civil code to implementation of the uniform civil code, it has not been done, and it has been opposed by religious and political parties. The Shah Bano case provoked a political firestorm in India when the Supreme Court ruled that Shah Bano, a Muslim woman who had been divorced by her husband in 1978, was entitled to receive alimony from her former husband under Indian law applicable for all Indian women. This decision evoked outrage in Muslim community, which sought the application of the Muslim personal law, and in response, the parliament passed the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986, overturning the Supreme Court's verdict. This act provoked further outrage as jurists, critics, politicians alleged that political right of fundamental right of equality for all citizens, irrespective of religion or gender, was being uh, gestioned to preserve the interest of distinct religious communities. The verdict and the legislation remain a source of heated debate, with many citing the issue as a prime example of the poor implementation of fundamental rights. So these are cases they are trying to tell that where we have observed in some of the cases, India and the government is trying to follow the directive principles. There are clear cases where government was failed to implement. The case of Shabano, where firstly she has been provided the right to alimony, then a new law has been made where it has been taken, the point of view of a personal Muslim personal law. Then, both sides, somehow the people were, somehow they were um, debating that, at both points the work was not done, and that was a clear example of a poor implementation of fundamental rights. Article 30(1) prompting rendering of the justice by court is part of animating judiciary. Rendering prompt justice is the foremost purpose of the Constitution, as enshrined is the preamble to the Constitution also. Or the judiciary is failing dismally in this respect by causing inordinate delay, considering time of rendering justice in a case arbitrarily is its constitutional liberty. Study only relationship between the fundamental rights, directive principles, and fundamental duties. So they are again saying this thing that there are chances, there are cases where we feel like the proper implementation has not been done of these things. The directive principles have been used to uphold the constitutional validity of legislation in case of a conflict between the fundamental rights. Article 1C, added by the 25th Amendment in 1971, provided that any law made to give effect to directive principles in Article 39B and C would not be invalid on the ground that they derogated from the fundamental rights conferred by Article 14, 19, and 21. The application for this article was sought to be extended to all the directive principles by the 42nd Amendment in 1976, but the Supreme Court struck down the extension as void on the ground that it violated the basic structure of the Constitution. So government was trying to control. Government was trying to, it is a time of emergency. It was time of emergency when government was trying to make control, and the government was trying to become dictator. So the Supreme Court has, somehow been the guard over there, has told that this is the violation of the basic structure of the Constitution. The fundamental rights and directive principles have also been used together in forming the basis of legislation for social welfare. They're saying everything that is done for the social welfare. The Supreme Court, after the judgment in the Keshwananda Bharati case, has adopted the view of the fundamental rights and directive principles being complementary to each other. So they are complementary, they are not opposed to each other, each supplementing the other's role in aiming at the same goal of establishing a welfare state by means of social revolution. They are saying दोनों का जो तरीका है महत्व यही है कि welfare state it is trying to be established in the country. Similarly, the Supreme Court has used the fundamental duties to uphold the constitutional validity of statuses, which seeks to promote the objects laid out in a fundamental. So, on the same side, they are saying so. Country is also promoting fundamental duties that if we are exercising fundamental rights, there are fundamental duties. Supreme Court is also supporting. These duties have also been held to be obligatory for all citizens, subject to the state enforcing the same by means of a valid law. The Supreme Court has also issued direction to the state in this regard with a view toward making the provisions effective and enabling a citizen to properly perform their duties. So, as we talk about that, we always want justice from the point of view of our fundamental rights. Now, Supreme Court has also made it clear to everybody that fundamental duties are also very important for them, that they should also perform duties. They should not only expect from the state, and when it has come a question of performing something, they would say no, we will not. So if you will do so, they try to violate these duties, it can be challenged in the court. So that is what it is, the end of today's lecture, where we have discussed fundamental rights, directive state policies, and fundamental duties. Thank you so much. Now, if you have any other question, you can ask.
Excuse me, sir.
Haan ji, beta. Let me first of all, 1 minute. Let me stop the recording so that